Welcome everybody. My name is Frank Belschak. I'm the Program Director of the BSc program in Business Administration, and I'm delighted to welcome you here to this information session about the BSc in Business Administration at the University of Amsterdam. So we are proud to welcome you here at the second oldest university of the Netherlands. When you think about business administration, probably the first thing that comes to mind is money. So a company can only stay afloat if you bring in more money than actually goes out again. But business administration is about making choices. Individual, but also company choices. So what is the best strategy? How do you cope with new competitors coming up? Which product should you launch? What would be a good advertisement strategy for your product? Who should you hire? Where do you want to invest your money? Which product would suit best to the customers? How should you put it in a box? How should you wrap it? All those decisions have to be taken. And you also need to take a decision now. You have to choose your bachelor program. And you want to know probably, is business administration the right study for me? And if so, is the University of Amsterdam the right university for me? So we hope to provide you some valuable information that will help you to answer those questions today. So, what do you expect for today, or can you expect from today? First, I want to provide some practical information. So what does the program here look like? Secondly, I also want to tell you something about the content of the product, so of the program. To explain business administration and what business administration is about and the specialization of business administration, I'm going to use a case about a specific company. I'm going to tell you, referring to the company, what management is like, what accounting is like, what finance is like, to give you a more concrete idea about what you would have to expect content-wise during the program. Okay, some practical information. We welcome you here at the University of Amsterdam. In the background you can see some nice picture of the Amsterdam canals. As you can see here now on the sheet, the University of Amsterdam, as I already mentioned, is the second oldest university in the Netherlands. It is also a broad and really large university, so it has 7 faculties and the Amsterdam University College, so meaning a law school, a medical school, but also a business school. And we host here about 32,000 students and about 5,700 staff members. We are also scoring relatively high. You have different rankings, like for instance the Times Higher Education World University ranking, which is a pretty common one to use. And there we score number 59 in the world and number 1 in the Netherlands. So we're a pretty decent university, if I may say so. And we are offering also here for a couple of years business administration. How does it look like, business administration? This is a little bit your roadmap. So, first thing, the colorful thing there, the line at the bottom, is the Bachelor in Business Administration. It's a 3 years program. Each year consists of 10 different courses that you need to pass. In the first year, as you can see here, we have something which is called a binding study advice, which means you have to pass a certain number of courses in order to be allowed to continue your studies. If you do not pass sufficient courses or accumulate sufficient credits, you need to stop with your study. This is why it's called a binding study advice. And the threshold is you need to pass 8 out of the 10 courses. If you pass 8 or more, you can continue. If you do pass less than 8 courses, you need to stop. And then you're blocked from studying the same program again for 3 years. Okay, so this is the Bachelor, 3 years. After the Bachelor, you can continue with a Master. In the Netherlands, it's pretty common to continue with a Master's afterwards. So I would say about 80% of the students in the Netherlands continue with a Master's. But you don't need to in other countries, like for instance the UK. It's pretty common to stop after the Bachelor and immediately then go on the job market, then work some years, and then some might come back and do a Master's, some might not. But we as a university do offer also 2 different master's programs. You can just go for the Master's in Science, which is 1 year in business administration, or you can go for a research master, which is 2 years. So this is a little bit what we can offer for you at the University of Amsterdam. If you would go for business administration, how does it look like? I already told you every year has 10 courses, but the year is split up in semesters, so in half years, and within the semesters you have different periods. What it gets down to is that basically this is how your timetable would look like in the first year, when you start here right away. So you can see there that you have 2 different courses. One is called Principles of Economics and Business 1, and the other is called Strategy and Organization. And you can see that you have combinations of lectures, which is in a plenary context, meaning you're sitting there together with other students, all other students, and there's the lecturer, which is basically telling you facts and trying to give you knowledge. This is complemented in the middle of the week, Tuesday through Thursday mostly, with small group lectures or small group seminars. That means that you're not together with all of your fellow students, but only with something like 40 students, 30 students. And there is the space to discuss, ask questions, do exercises, apply what you've learned. And at the end of the week, you have again a big lecture in which you have the opportunity to meet again with the lecturer and ask questions and provide feedback. So this is the general setup. And for those of you who count the hours, you would notice that, okay, so that means 2 hours of lecture, 2 hours of tutorial, and another 2 hours of lecture, times 2 is 12, but there is 14 hours now. This is because next to those 2 courses of each 6 hours per week, you have 2 hours of a project, which is more skills-oriented. And you start out with a project about academic reading and writing, academic skills. So this is an additional class that runs in parallel to the other 2 courses that you are following. So as you can see, you only have 14 hours at which you have to be there, present, and attend university settings. The rest of the time you should and also need to spend on self-study. So please take that seriously. Don't think like, oh great, that leaves me with plenty of time to have a great time. Yes, we know Amsterdam is a great place, but still you're a full-time student and we really expect you, lecturers expect you to spend those other more than 20 hours per week on self-study. So you need to prepare lectures, you need to read stuff afterwards, you need to do homework. So count on a full-time work week of about 38 hours. This is the formal setup. What do you have to expect content-wise? Well, business administration is a multidisciplinary study, as opposed to other programs like, for instance, mathematics. In mathematics, as the name already suggests, you do mathematics. In business administration, you will meet a couple of different disciplines. So the starting point is you have a business problem and you want to solve it. And for solving it, you can use different tools, different disciplines. Some of the problems that you will meet are more mathematical in nature, like, for instance, where to invest my money. You have different investment projects, and you just want to compute, and you can calculate which one is preferable, which one yields the best ratio in terms of input-outcome. But there are other questions, like, for instance, what is the best advertisement campaign? There you would need other sciences, other disciplines, like, for instance, psychology. Is this advertisement better to recall for recipients, or is another one better suited? So here we perceive that there are 4 pillars, 4 main pillars that we feel are most important for you to have in business administration. Those 4 pillars you will meet in the first years. Those 4 pillars are the organization, people, economics, and methods. And you can see them back also in the first year. So the organization, you can see it strategy and organization. Economics, you can see economics and principles of economics. Methods, you can see it in business research methods and quantitative data analysis. and people you can see back in the organizational behavior. Once you've had those 4 pillars, we make it more complex. Then we go to, if you will, functional areas, let's say the departments in the organization. So like marketing, accounting, finance, and we will apply those 4 pillars, those different disciplines for solving problems within those functional areas. This is what you will meet basically at the end of the first year and then in the second year. So here you can see it coming back. In the second half of the second year, we get even more complex. So it's kind of a hierarchical structure which builds on each other. In the second half of the second year, you will get areas of business administration that are more integrative, meaning different functional areas come together for those topics, like innovation or information and data management or international business. Internationalization has aspects that refer to HRM, finance, marketing, strategy. So here the functional areas come together, which means that at the end of the second year, you have a well-rounded education in all kinds of different areas of business administration, which is our goal. Because in the third year, as you can see there, decision time. So the third year is basically up to you. You can decide how to fill in exactly your third year within a certain framework, but you have a lot of freedom, which is, I think, the strong point of our program. So in the first half of the third year, you have 3 different options, basically. One is internationalization, second is broadening, third one is practice. What does that mean? So internationalization means you have the opportunity to go abroad to one of our numerous partner universities. And here comes in the fact that we are a big university. It's very convenient because we have worldwide more than 100 partner universities from which you can choose if you want to go abroad. That will mean that you will spend a full half year abroad at one of our partner universities studying there. This half year then counts as a half year for your study here. Second option, broadening. So maybe you think business administration is the program of my dreams. I want to do business administration, but I always had that small dream next to that. I was so interested in philosophy or art history or maybe even physics or informatics. Well, here's your choice. The minor gives you the chance to broaden your scope and do a kind of mini program outside of business studies. So, and again, it's very convenient that we are a big university because we are having here at the UvA all kind of different programs, and that means also all kind of different minors. So basically every program, almost every program at the University of Amsterdam offers also this kind of mini minor packages, which is a half-year program which gives you the basic on a certain topic. From philosophy to art history, languages, Chinese culture and history, you name it, we got it. So, if really you want to broaden your scope, please do so, choose for a minor. Third option is practice. Well, some of you might feel that it's pretty theoretical. You're studying at a university, it's highly analytic, but what companies nowadays want is really practical, down-to-earth skills. So how to get them? Well, if you feel this way, you're free to choose for a practice semester, which basically means you do an internship. Next to that internship, you need to do also a couple of electives, but those electives could be more practice-oriented, like career management, presentational skills. So that would be the third option, go practice. The choice is yours. Second half of the third year, again, you can choose, and you have to choose for specialization. A lot of studies offer you also some kind of elective in which you can specialize, but that's mostly just 1 or 2 electives in different areas, just the hobby. Here we're really serious about the specialization, and we force you to spend a full half year, which gets down to 4 different courses, plus your thesis in the area of your specialization. So if you specialize in that area, we're talking about a serious specialization. You really do have deep knowledge in that area. What kind of specializations do we offer? Well, It may change because we want to play in on new developments. As you can see, we also have a specialization in digital business. But for the time being, we have specializations in management, which is basically about, in general, managing your companies. You could expect topics like leadership, marketing, strategy. Next specialization would be accountancy and control. Third specialization is finance. And last not least, entrepreneurship and digital business. So, you might think like, well, that sounds fancy, but actually, what is entrepreneurship and digital business? Or what is accountancy? To illustrate that and give you some better ideas about what business administration is about, I would like to introduce a case. Meaning, I will go into one company and illustrate what accountancy, finance, management, entrepreneurship means for that specific company, or could mean. There we have just picked one company, which in this case was, as you can see with the symbol here with the logo, Shell. Why Shell? Shell is a big company, a multinational company, which is nice because it offers us the opportunity to cover basically all aspects of business administration. So especially if you refer to the finance and accounting side, it's more interesting if you have a big company than for a small company where you only have the choice between a limited number of different options. Okay, so from a management perspective, what would be typical questions that would be relevant for Shell? One of the things that would be interesting there is, for instance, well, we're talking about gas. So what is Shell about? Shell is about oil turning it into gas and selling gas. That's one of their core products. But the problem is, gas is a pretty homogeneous product. So my car basically doesn't really care where I get my gas from. So the question is, how can Shell set itself apart from all the competitors and take care that you buy your gas with your car at their tank station, gas station, rather than at your competitors? So that's one of the interesting questions. Another one is maybe you, your parents, some older ones may remember that a couple of years ago there were some serious environmental accidents happening in which Shell was involved, like a supertanker sinking and an oil driller being corrupted. So serious pollutions, and the public image of Shell has really suffered. And that is a problem because, yeah, like I said, people have the choice. So they can vote by voting by feet. So they can simply get their gas somewhere else. Or you want, as a company, hire high potentials, good people. But how do you convince them to get to a company where they feel like they have a bad reputation? So what can Shell do to improve the image of the firm in the public opinion and become one of the green companies? And indeed, nowadays, Shell has changed their image and they are one of the greenest gas-producing companies. Another question is how to manage and lead a multinational firm like Shell. Shell has subsidiaries in almost any country of the world. And let's assume you're a successful leader, manager here in the Netherlands. You're transferred to another country, let's say China. Well, does the leadership skills and the leadership style that you've used here successfully in the Netherlands, does it also work in China? Or do you have to lead differently? Do people there need to be motivated in different ways? Do you need to sell your products differently? Do you need to set up your marketing campaigns differently? International aspects. So that all falls under the management perspective. Next, finance. If we want to keep it simple, finance is about two things. First is how to get money, financing. Second, how to spend your money, so investing. Referring to the first part, why is Shell a stock company? So Shell is a stock company, like I said, and it's a way to get money. You have different options how to get your money. You can find private investors, you can find banks, you can go to the stock market. The question is, which is the best way to finance your company? Or else, how does Shell create return on invested capital? So how do you earn basically money? how do you maximize your wins? One simple question would be, how much gas to produce? How much should you put on the market? Is it just best strategy to always go for the max, get as much oil out of the ground as you can and sell everything? Well, as you may have learned in economics, the more you offer, the more the price gets down because you might get an oversupply. So the supply and the price are linked to each other. So here you can compute what is the optimum that you should put on the market. That would also be an example of a finance question. Another question that would come up in finance is, let's think you're investing money. You put it into Shell, but the question is, you have 20,000 euros. Should you spend them all in Shell? Or should you go also to Shell and the competitors, like, for instance, Exxon, BP, Esso? So, spread it a little bit. Or maybe spread it even more. And then go also banking companies, retailers. So the question we're referring to here is, how much should you spread the risk? So risk minimization versus income maximization. So this is also a finance question. Accounting. Accounting, again, if you want, you can make it simple and say like, okay, it's budgeting and it's bookkeeping. Bookkeeping refers to the legal obligation to publish certain financial statements, like a balance and a profit and loss account. You're obliged by law to publish that in the Netherlands and in most other countries in the world. And there are certain rules what you need to publish and how to publish it there, and how to value certain things like real estate. But you also have choices how you value those real estates. Like, for instance, a oil refinery or an oil field. What do you put there in your balance as a value? Is it the price that you've paid when you bought it? Is it the price, the market price that it is worth currently at the moment? So what are your options and what is wisdom? What should you do there? That depends on whether you want a credit from your bank, whether you want to look nice for shareholders. So you have different options and you need to make wise choices there. Also, you should be really aware about your costs. So some big retailer in the toys area made the mistake a couple of years ago that they offered certain packages lower than their actual cost price. They almost went bankrupt because they had no idea what were really the costs of producing those packages. And here you can see that this is a fatal flaw. You need to be aware, because this is where I started. At the end of the day, more money has to come in than goes out. So obviously, if you spend more money on production than you earn by selling, you will go bankrupt. So you need to really be aware of the whole cost structure. Track it down, and it gets quite quickly quite complex. So it's pretty easy, like plastic that went into certain things. Okay, but how about administration? How about buildings? Buildings that are used for administration, then for different products. What are weights that you need to put there on those costs and to allocate them to certain products? How do you spread them across the different products? This is also an accounting question that will go into budgeting. And another facet of accounting that you might not be aware of is also the monitoring, audit system, reward system. So for instance, how do you have to manage a firm to minimize the risk of fraud and discover potential fraud on time? So setting up smart reward system that do not, for instance, focus only on outcomes, so that people basically get an incentive to engage maybe in unethical practices in order to maximize their outcome. So these kind of topics would also fall under accounting. Last, entrepreneurship. You might think like, why would entrepreneurship matter for Shell? Well, of course, entrepreneurship, at first sight, you think mostly about setting up your own business, which is basically true. This is something that you would learn in the entrepreneurship track. But it's also relevant for other countries. Then you would rather, for other companies. Then you would rather call it intrapreneurship. Rather take it more broadly as innovation. And this is especially relevant for Shell, because Shell is suffering from a serious problem. Oil as a natural resource is limited. At a certain moment, it's gone. So what then? Switch off your light and close down business? So you have to think about what to do. What is your business model? What is your business strategy? What do you want to do in the long run? How to switch from oil to something else? And how can a traditional and old company like Shell, which is already around for decades, ensure that there's still sufficient innovation in the firm? There are enough examples of old companies who just became bureaucratic, they couldn't change enough with time, and they went bankrupt and vanished. So, how can Shell take care that they are still innovative, cutting edge, thinking ahead? And how can Shell, on this venture, on this search for new strategies and new business models, make optimal use of its extant knowledge and resources for launching new business activities? Well, one example would be, for instance, investments in windmills. This is one of the options that Shell is currently thinking about. So they have expertise in offshore activities, drilling holes into the seas to get to gas fields and to oil fields and exploit them. They also have expertise in getting the natural resources from offshore back to the shore. And these are the same problems that you would meet if you have big windmill parks to produce electricity somewhere in the Northern Sea, for instance. You have to make them really steady so that they can stand the weather and the waves. But on the other hand, the electricity that is produced also has to be transferred back to the main country there. And this is then their expertise that they have already learned in their offshore activities with oil and gas. So, that will be an example of entrepreneurship, or rather intrapreneurship and innovation for Shell. I hope that gives you some kind of idea what business administration is all about and the different facets of it. Okay, what can you do once you're done? With a study, with a program, you have your degree, you want to work, where could you work? Well, obvious candidates for people more in entrepreneurship area is become an entrepreneur, a traditional or also an e-business entrepreneur. But you can also start as an employee at a startup. But like I just said, you could as well work at bigger companies and then be there more responsible for innovation. Accounting mostly start as accountants, big accounting offices, big accounting agencies like PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, so the so-called Big Four. You can also work in any kind of big company, because any big company has also an accounting department. Because it's so important to keep track of the budgeting of your costs, and you all have obligations for publishing financial statements. Finance, you can work as financial advisor, business analyst, risk manager. At big insurance or banking houses is where you typically would go. But also, again, big companies all have finance departments. And management, basically any kind of company ranging from governmental organization to non-profit organization to highly for-profit organization in any kind of industry, they always need business people. So marketing, strategy, HR are really core topics that any company desperately needs. So fortunately, your career perspectives are really good. Okay, now we've heard a lot about how the program looks like in the UFA, how structurally we have set it up, and what business administration is about. So you've learned a little bit. So now the question is, does the program appeal to you? Do you like it? And another question that comes up is, do you have the right level of mathematics? So we want to emphasize it because we don't explicitly offer mathematics courses during the program. But still, some of the topics that you will meet, like finance or operations management, will draw on your knowledge in mathematics. It will only be at the school level, or the little bit that you would need further would be explained in those content courses. But still, it's important that you do have sufficient knowledge in mathematics, especially because we don't offer any other courses there in the program. So please carefully check for you whether there is a fit there too. And last not least is, are you up for the academic challenge? Please keep in the back of your mind, this is an academic program. So we're talking about a university degree here. So it's not like we have in the Netherlands, University of Applied Sciences, which would be more about application of stuff. What we like to do is here develop critical thinkers and analyze problems, find a general pattern, develop a theory. It's not just ad hoc problem fixing. It's about taking a step back, analyzing the problem, seeing the general pattern, and applying a general theory to structurally solve the problem. This is more what you have to think about in terms of an academic study in business administration. And some of you might feel that this is fascinating, and others might feel that this is not to their liking. So please check out how your preferences are like. Okay, so why choose us? Because business administration, there's tons of places where you can study. Basically, any big university or any university in the Netherlands also offers a program in business administration. So there is competition. Why should you choose for the University of Amsterdam? Well, I would say there are a couple of reasons why you might want to choose for our program. First, I've already mentioned it during the program, there are lots of opportunities to make the program your own. So to build up your tailor-made program. Basically, the whole third year is full of freedom and options. And I think this is quite unique in the Netherlands. So if you would like to give it your own twist and really focus on what you like, well, then here is your chance. Second, it's an English language program. So the Netherlands is a small country, and most of its trade is with other countries abroad. And anyways, nowadays, we're talking about the global economy. So we are hiring people globally, most of the time in big companies anyway, certainly the language on the work floor is English. So you need to be able to talk English because either your colleagues are English or speak English, or your customers speak English, or you're working somewhere abroad. So I think it's a serious advantage if you're already confronted with English language in your program. If you are an international student, well, it's ideal to have an English language program. And by the way, in the Netherlands, almost anybody speaks English. So no matter whether you want to go to the grocery store, to the supermarket, or to the cinema, everywhere you get by with English. Well, what is also nice is it's an international program. So actually, 50% of our teaching staff is from countries all over the world, ranging from other European countries like Italy, Germany, Belgium, England, to international people from China, Australia, Canada, the US. So we have all people from those countries working at the Amsterdam Business School as lecturers. Also, the students are pretty international. So we have students from all over the world. It's a widespread of nations that come by. Basically, any continent over the world come studying here. So we have people from South America, we have people from North America, we have people from Asia, we have people from other European countries. You name it, we got it. And last not least, I've told it, and maybe I should not emphasize because it's a big distraction, the campus is located downtown in the heart of Amsterdam, which is a world-class city. So there is a lot to discover, a lot to do. So obviously outside of your study time, there is plenty of things you could do to have really a good time and make that the time of your life. So you see, there are a lot of reasons why you could or might want to choose for the University of Amsterdam. Okay, if you are convinced, what are your next steps? First step would be to request the brochure. There it is described all the things that you could do, that you need to do all the steps, and also the program, how it looks like again in the summary. Next step is register for the Taster Week. A Taster Week is basically a short overview of how the teaching is done here. So you will get some real lectures for a couple of days. You will get tutorials. You will work together with prospect future students, and you will get some articles that you would need to read to get a real taste, this is why it's called Taster Week, about how the program looks like and how it feels like and whether you like it, whether there is a fit. If then you still feel that this is interesting, just apply for the program. So the non-EU students need to apply by April 1st, and the EU students, I was just looking at a colleague who was showing me a question that I will respond to in a sec. The EU students or the Dutch students need to apply by May 1st at the latest. Once you have applied and enrolled for the program, there is still another component that you need to do, the compulsory part, UFA matching. UFA matching is, again, you're forced to do some bits of the program that should give you some deeper insights how the program looks like. As a final check, do I see a fit? So it is an online program. You would need to watch a certain number of online clips, knowledge clips in the areas of principles of economics and business, strategy and organization, and mathematics. And you will need to read some, self-study some articles, book chapters, and at the end you need to pass an exam. If this is all done, and at the end of the day you still say like, yes, I like what I've met so far and I want to enroll, then we would love to welcome you here at the University of Amsterdam in Business Administration. Okay, and now I get to the question, which was, why didn't you call it International Business Administration? Answer, we could have. So basically, there is no real definition about what international business administration is about. If you take a look at characteristics of international business or IBA, International Business Administration programs, most of the time components that they talk about is English language program, international staff, international students, and going abroad. Those 4 components, we all meet the criteria. So we have comparable percentages of international staff and international students as other, explicitly calling themselves International Business Administration. It's an English language program. We refer to international aspects in all of the courses. We even have an explicit course on international business. In the 3rd year, you do have the option to go abroad. So basically, we meet all the criteria for an international business administration program, but we didn't call it that way. Why? Because, first thing is, it's your program. If you want to fill it in a slightly different way, for instance, you want to go for national experience and go for an internship in the country, well, okay, up to you. And secondly, because actually I think that business administration can't be anything else than international. So I think it shouldn't be called International Business Administration, because honestly, which business nowadays can afford not to be international? Almost any company, except for the very small one with only 3 employees, any slightly bigger company is international, is working with international staff and international customers. So I think that nowadays business administration basically always is international. So that was our reason for not calling it explicitly International Business Administration, even though in fact we are an International Business Administration program. Okay. If you would like to see more information, please do check out our homepages. So you can see that student.uva.nl, and then you click on the button English, and then you end up on the homepage of the University of Amsterdam, the English language homepage, and there you choose the option Program, Bachelor, and Economics and Business, and you can see all the different programs that are offered, amongst which you can also find Business Administration. Anyways, everybody who has registered for this webinar here will also receive an information package anyways. And if you do have any specific questions regarding your admission, about what kind of criteria you need to meet and whether certain degrees you have passed already qualify or not, please do feel free to get in touch with our admissions office. As you can see here, this is the URL. You can find it back on the slides, and those people would be most happy to answer all of your questions. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that was about it. And now I see another question. Difference in business, international business and IBA. So the question was, what is the difference between international business and international business administration? That is a good question. At the spot, I couldn't come up with any difference. Most of the time, the programs are called international business administration because the standard formula, the standard label or term that is internationally used for this kind of program is business administration. So rarely universities would call a program business. They always call it business administration. And if it's an international program, they call it international business administration, so IBA. That's the common label, at least here in the Netherlands. This is what everybody uses. Most of the time, if you use the label international business, it refers more specifically to a smaller thing. It's mostly at the course level. We have also a course which is called international business, which is then about international aspects that businesses consider, like branching out to different countries. What are advantages versus disadvantages from, let's say, selling your products to China versus opening up a subsidiary in China and producing stuff there, selling stuff there. So that would be international business. So it's more, it's a smaller thing. If you talk about international business administration, it's basically a whole business administration program, including and emphasizing also the international aspects. Okay. So this was what I wanted to tell you about the BSc program at the University of Amsterdam. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope that I will see you all back in September.